Greetings and welcome to another edition of Prescott Talks. This is David McNabb filling in for Glenn Martin today with a special guest from the community, Russ Miller. You might know Russ from his longtime work at the public library here in Prescott. A lot of people know him from there, but a lot of people also know him from his other talents of artistry and bagpiping, and we're going to get into that right now. Russ, give us a little bit about your background, if you would, and how you came to Prescott and your work there at the Prescott Library.
Okay. Well, actually, I grew up here, so it was coming back. It was more.
You're a natural Prescottonian.
I'm a natural Prescottonian. That's right. So I kind of knew the neighborhood before I came back. As far as what I've done as a career, I went away to school like most people do and studied art, studied theology, then art again. And
what schools did you go to?
I went to ASU to start with. Then I went to Fuller Theological Seminary.
Fuller in Pasadena. I went there as well.
Yeah, it's a great school. And then I went to Cal State LA. So that was the big three there for me. But,
all right, great. So good schools.
They are. I don't know about how I got in there, but it's just
somebody must have
obviously
seen it.
Yes, clearly. Okay. Came back to Prescott like a lot of people do, and haven't regretted it.
So well, and then you pursued your art in what way?
When you're freelancing, it's whoever has a paycheck. I mean, that. So I worked for magazines and newspapers and corporations and gun companies and heavy equipment company. I mean, just whoever came along that needed like a design or a manual.
How do you become known in the art world? I mean, how do people contact you, know about you?
That's the rub. Networking. When you're in a business, as you know, if you're in any kind of business, I mean, people in that business talk, and if you can make an editor sleep well at night, they're going to want to use you because they're not having to do your job too. So, so when you get into a profession like this, understand the language of printing, understand the language of distribution, understand the language of readership, and you take those things to the table as tools. And when you do that and you show you've got a good tool supply, then people will talk positively about you, And if you can hit the deadline on Thursday, that's really big.
So it's really word of mouth.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And, people, we're notorious in America for moving around. I mean, a guy I would be working at a magazine over here would quit that and go to, become a CEO of a company over here where they still need materials, and he remembers me because, he could sleep at night. So he calls me up to say, we need a spreadsheet and we need this, we need some, company doodads to give out at the next, convention. Can you come up with that? So you get drawn around to all these different sort of venues, which also means you've got to be fairly versatile if you're going to make a living at it.
Yes. Now I saw your pieces primarily in the Independent Celt. Looks like this. It's a monthly newsletter out of Flagstaff. Those last two issues right here. Which you do you've been doing a monthly illustration for this for quite a long time, right?
Right.
And also you have a monthly illustration for Five Senses magazine.
Right, I do. I started out with Five Senses. I was doing, oddly enough, Russ Miller's Oddly Enough, which was internationally syndicated for a little over 20 years.
Oh, wow.
And that was one of those deals where somebody suggested, why don't you, because I was doing Oddly Enoughs as little one-offs for various publications, and a friend of mine said, why don't you get this syndicated? And I said, because syndications are great. Talented people work for them. Are you crazy? Yeah. So anyway, I thought, well, again, maybe he's onto something. So I did my research, came up with 120 different syndication houses. Thought, okay, I'm going to set a goal for myself of 100. If I get 100 rejections, it's a bad idea. Okay, but I got to have 100 people tell me no. Okay, so I think the 28th syndication house said yes, signed a contract, and it went international. And but see, syndication houses are like bought and sold all the time too. So as they rise and fall, so does your income.
Yeah.
So anyway, so I started with Five Senses doing Russ Miller's Oddly Enough. Then they switched. They said, "Do you have a comic strip?" And I said, "Yeah, I've got this thing called Stink Bug that's been languishing for like 30 years. I can pull it out of a drawer and start drawing it again." And they said, "Yeah, why don't you give that a shot?" So anyway, Stink Bug has really caught on. I don't know why, but Anyway, we've got a comic book that's going to be coming out probably first of next year of Stink Bug.
Wow.
And we've also got a book of Russ Miller's, oddly enough, coming out also next year.
Great. Who will be publishing that?
That's going to be through 4AM, which is the people that do Five Senses.
Okay.
So it's the publishing company behind Five Senses. 4AM is doing.
What will be the distribution?
I have no idea. That's their problem.
Okay.
I just, you know,
But you can get it on Amazon probably with, with a million other things, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I'm very familiar with Oddly Enough, and I love those because there's a lot of history in those.
Yeah, there is.
And there's a lot of just odd history bits that you have not heard of before.
I'm hoping, yeah, that everybody that picks that up goes, whoa. Yeah, that's you know.
It's cool, and I love history. So, and of course, all this stuff that you have in there is stuff that I've never heard about. And, you know, I know a little bit of history, but I didn't know that stuff.
Yeah.
And it was just odd, weird, kind of bizarre stuff. And
I'll tell you what's interesting to me, because I've been working on like material for Oddly Enough really since I was a kid. Literally since I was a kid, I collected weird stuff, just odd snippets, trivia. Yeah. And you know, thanks to the library, that's where all this stuff comes from. But the thing that amazes me for myself is I'm still stunned. I mean, I've been doing this, you know, as a discipline for years, and I'll still be, you know, reading a history book or something, go, whoa, you got to be kidding me, and cross-reference and say, that's right, that happened. Or you think the ones that I like are the ones that you think you know. You think you know Columbus, or you think you know, you know, the Wright brothers, and then you come across this just outrageous thing that nobody seemed to cover. Nobody seemed to point to that and say, that's a little sketchy. Okay. So anyway, that's the stuff I like, is like when it really jumps out. And I'm still startled by that. So I figure if I am, you should be.
Yes, absolutely I am. And so I'm getting the idea that you're a voracious reader.
I try to be.
And that's why
you have to draw, you know, sometime.
You're able to find all these odd things that are in history that you pull out and then put into a presentation.
And I've got file folders, literally file folders with thousands of pieces that I haven't. I mean, if I quit reading right now, I could continue this for, I don't know, probably 1,000 years.
Okay, well, those are cool things coming up. So look for those folks. Oddly Enough and Stink Bug coming up next year in their own books, right?
Right. Yep.
And you can also see Russ Miller's illustrations in the Five Senses magazine and in the Independent Celt. And you can get Independent Celt by, I guess the best way is just to write them. Independent Celt, Aradia Bookstore, Post Office Box 266, Flagstaff 86002. The subscription is only $15.
Yeah,
which
for
is
a year.
Amazing.
Yeah, it is.
For 12 issues.
Yeah.
$15.
Yeah, everything Celtic that you didn't even know you wanted to know.
Good stuff in here, and they have a good a calendar of events as well.
Yes, they do.
For Arizona Celts.
Right.
And other really interesting articles in there, and you write in there as well.
I do.
Articles in there, so and good Celtic history kind of stuff. And before we move on to the bagpipes and your Celtic connections, tell us how you came to work at the library.
That's a pretty good question. Is it insurance was a big factor. The fact that it was working for the city. I like the institution of free public libraries very, very much. I think that's, for your tax dollar, that's the biggest bang for your buck, as far as I'm concerned.
That's right.
My personal opinion.
I totally agree.
And
Andrew Carnegie, Scotsman.
You bet. And he is. And I like the fact. Well, you know, Scotland. If you want to talk Scotland, Scotland was considered at one time the most impoverished nation on the planet. I mean, think about that.
It's not true.
Think about what that means, and then they become what they have. And how did that happen? Two things: they had access to libraries eventually, and they found out these people are actually pretty clever because they could read that stuff and apply it and make things better, or even invent new things.
Right.
And then they had America to practice in. So you had public libraries and the freedom of enterprise in the United States. So you had these two major factors that actually made Scotland what it was. Even though, early on, some of the British were trying to put down their import business because they had a real thing going with tobacco for a while. But which of course the British wanted in on that. Which leads to things like tea parties and all that ugly stuff. Right. But anyway, so that's my passion for libraries is pretty solid, and I felt actually very honored to be there as long as I worked and had as many jobs as I did. When I started there, I hope I'm not telling tales out of school here, but when you begin working for a city, they have a lot of strata that you can work at. And I was going from one to the other so often that I was sort of starting over. So you can't get all the perks until you have a certain amount of time. But if you're changing, then it's like it never catches up with you.
And your last position was king of the library.
It was king actually. I think called it emperor, but you're right.
Okay.
Maybe I was a reference. I was adult services reference librarian. I was very proud of that.
Well, it's great connection. And now, just going back for a minute about Scotland and why it went from so poor and nothing going on to being a great country that it is now, which I believe I read it was had the seventh highest economy in the world. It is one of the major reasons, besides what you mentioned, was that they were very early readers. They stressed reading because
and languages.
They wanted everyone to be able to read the Bible.
Right.
They're very religious people. When John Knox got in there in the mid-1600s, people were crazy about religion. They were crazy before, but they were really crazy now when John Knox is in there preaching from St. Giles Church in Edinburgh, and just got people fired up. So the premise was everyone in the country has to be able to read so they can read their Bible, and everyone will have a Bible.
Right, and the fact that the Celts as a group are mad about languages anyway. I mean, a lot of the old languages are still with us because the Irish and the Scots were busy translating because they knew that was important. They felt like keeping Latin alive and coming to grips with that and writing books by hand. That was one of their deals. I mean, that was like really important. So the rest of the world was sort of in the Dark Ages. They're in the dungeons, basically, cranking out handwritten books so they'd have more to read.
Yes.
So,
There's the very famous Book of Kells.
Absolutely. That's a perfect example.
Which most people think is Irish, but it actually is Scottish because it was written on the Isle of Iona, which is a Scottish island off the west coast. And then later transferred to Dublin for safekeeping because, lo and behold, those wild Vikings were raiding repeatedly, and it was not a pleasant surprise on the coast of Scotland and Ireland. But they thought they would be safer in Ireland, so it was transported over there, and is now in the care of Trinity College there.
Yeah. Speaking of Book of Kells, when I was taking art history at ASU, you'd see thousands of slides, and I'll tell you one thing about having a good church background was I knew the stories I was looking at, so I wasn't having to learn that too. It's a tribute money. Come on, are you kidding me? I was that part was really easy. Getting who did it, when they did it, that was a little more of a work. But knowing what I was looking at was always fairly obvious to me because most of the Renaissance and paintings like that are religious. Okay, when I saw the Book of Kells, it was like, heaven opened up. And it was like, where did this come from? Yeah. And, surprise. Yeah. I mean, it's obviously thundering down some kind of genetic code, but that, to me, kind of set in motion my drive toward the design element of what I started doing. I mean, that was that art history class.
Yes.
So, you never know. Okay. You never know what,
And for those who don't know about the Book of Kells, check it out online. It's beautiful color illustrations of that's actually in the Gospels. There are parts when they start the Gospel, they come with this amazing illustration. It must have taken them a huge amount of time because these are very intricate. They had all the time in the world, didn't they? But they were until the Vikings came and killed them. Yeah. But illustration are so beautiful and intricate that you really should see them if you're not aware of the Book of Kells, and that had a lot to do with influencing the art style of the Kells.
Right. Oh yeah. This was very earthy. This is where they. I mean, if you look at their runes, their stones, their monuments. I mean, it's all there. It's all that pattern and the interwoven, lace work. It's all there. I mean, it's all to be seen, and it's in their mythology. It's the same way. It does that too. So it's great stuff.
Very fascinating. Now we're going to move on to the Scottish side of Russ Miller now, and tell us about your Scottish background.
I didn't know much about it except that my great granddad came from Scotland. He was a blacksmith, and his twin brother was a blacksmith, and they came through Canada because it was cheaper. Oh, thrifty, what a surprise! Okay, so they came through Canada, picked up a wife there, which was good for me.
Yeah, and, handy to have a wife.
Yes. So anyway, and she was French Canadian, whatever that means. And anyway, I knew her. She was actually around when I was 12 years old. I still remember. It was my great grandmother. Yeah, she was great. Of course. So anyway, that's that part of the family. It was primarily through my father, my Aunt Welsh. So Scots and Welsh is through my dad's people. My mom's people were primarily Irish Scot. So there was a little more Irish than there were Scot, but they were Ulster Irish. And I remember asking my grandmother one time where the Creasman name came from. And I was really pushing her on it. She didn't want to tell me because it wasn't necessarily a thing of pride back then for her generation. So I remember her telling me one time, "You're Ulster Irish, and that's all you need to know."
Okay.
So in the conversation.
Okay, let me explain what that term Ulster Irish means. It means people who came from Scotland at some point, usually in the 1700s, to Ireland. There's Scots that moved to Ireland before moving to Canada and or America. So they're also called Scottish Americans. Scots Irish.
Scots Irish. Yep.
Okay, so Ulster Scots or Ulster Irish or Scots Irish are all the same thing. The Scots that moved to now Ulster is 9 counties in Northern Ireland. It's not just the 6 counties of Northern Ireland of Britain. And the full name, by the way, is United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. That's the whole name. You never hear, but you heard it here on Prescott Talks. You can really, impress your friends and educate them about the full name
Cutting edge
of United Kingdom. Okay, so tell us a little bit about your interest in bagpipes and how that came about.
Okay, first time I ever heard live bagpipes was in Pasadena, California, and I was photographing the Rose Bowl parade. I'd never heard live pipes before, and when I did, it was jarring. It was like it went right down my spine.
How old were you at this point?
I was probably 21, 22.
And your grandpa was a blacksmith from Scotland. You never had heard the bagpipes.
Yeah, never had heard
That's
them.
shameful, man.
Absolutely. But I did that day, and it was always something kind of was on my mind. And so anyway, my late wife, I remember one time at Highland Games, I was whining about, "Let me take it, please," whatever. And she goes, "There's a piper right there. Go talk to him. Just go talk to him. Find out how you do it. Just go ask that man." Okay, fine. So I did, and they were local, and so I started taking lessons. Which is, you cannot be a sadist and play bagpipes. You've got to be a bit of a masochist. I mean, it's a brutal, humiliating instrument.
Yes.
Always is, and especially here because we're at least 4,000 feet higher than anywhere in Scotland. So you've got to deal with the altitude and the heat will damage them. The cold will damage them. Moisture will damage them.
Yeah.
Lack of moisture will damage them. So basically,
anything and everything.
Your countenance will damage them. It's anything. So
your attitude that day.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's got to be the most finicky instrument in the world.
It is. It's hard to play. And I've played other wind instruments. It's a hard one.
Wow. I wonder why it's so hard.
Well, you basically are trying to keep a bag with 5 holes in it inflated. That's one challenge.
Yeah.
And then make it sound nice. So there you go.
It's got a lot of different parts to it. So you met this guy, this bagpiper at the Rose Bowl parade, and how did the conversation go?
Well, I met the one that I got engaged with in terms of training was at a Highland Games. Actually, it was a Highland Games here in Prescott.
Oh,
Believe it
really?
or not, yeah. And so I said, you take old people, and he said, yeah. So I started getting lessons.
Is that Jim Burns?
No, actually, it was the one I got lessons from. Actually, was Denise Robinson.
Okay.
So I started with her. Then I joined Southwest Sky, which I ran into Michael Donaldson, and he's kind of been a great mentor for me.
Yes.
Plus, I've gone to the piping and drumming classes up in Flagstaff, and you know about that one. That's that's an intense week.
Yes. My son went
torture.
there 2 years and loved it.
It is. It's great,
it was a great
but
time.
it's intense.
Yeah. Well, great teachers. Aaron Shaw does a great job.
Some of the best in the world, actually.
And they also brought in some people from Ireland and Scotland to teach. And
right.
So yeah, it was a really neat thing to do there in Flagstaff. Are they still doing that?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
good. I haven't heard of that lately. Okay, so you started learning about what year was that you started learning?
Well, I was 55 at the time, so
Okay.
I don't know what year that was.
Okay.
I want to do the math right now.
Okay.
Look like an idiot.
All right, but you've become a very good piper in those
thank you.
those years, and the band that you're part of is called Southwest Sky Pipes and Drums.
Right.
Is that right? Mm-hmm. And they're really located in Williams, are they?
We're all over Arizona, but mostly northern Arizona. So we've got people in Sedona, Williams, Flagstaff, Prescott, Sun City, Chino Valley. They're kind of all over.
So yeah, that's a big spread of Arizona there that are participating in this band. But it's the Northern Arizona band. I don't think there's any other Northern Arizona bands, are there?
I don't think so. No, I think they're all like Phoenix, Tucson.
Yeah. Okay, so you're doing a great job of representing Scotland and Ireland with the bagpipes in this band throughout Arizona, and you also go to Nevada and New Mexico. Do you go to other states as well?
We've been to Colorado, Utah, New Mexico. Haven't made it to California yet, but so we play in the fairly close.
Okay,
areas.
and do you hire out? Can someone out there that wants to have a great wedding with a bagpipe band can get a hold of you and hire out?
Southwest Sky Pipes and Drums is online. Just type in Southwest Sky Pipes and Drums. Boom, come to our webpage, and there's somebody there that will answer your email.
All right, now let's say they don't have $2,000 to hire the band, but they want to hire you.
They want to hire me.
How would they do that?
The band will generally get a hold of me.
Okay.
And say it's in your neighborhood. You want to do it?
Okay, that's not good enough. We're putting up your personal information, whether you want it or not, and you can contact Russ Miller to come to your event, your wedding, your funeral. Those are two biggies that bagpipes are at. But a lot of parties too. It's great for parties, especially Celtic parties.
Yep, absolutely.
Good stuff. Okay, tell us what you got.
Okay, these are what they call shuttle pipes. I don't know how well you can see these. These are fairly small. These we know date back to the 1300s at least, because we've seen this exact set of pipes in stained glass windows from that time. So we know they were common then.
Wow.
These are kind of like little parlor pipes that would be played, around the fireplace and, let somebody sing, that sort of thing. These are called the Great Highland pipes. And again, I don't know how much of these you can see on camera. They basically have the big three drones and the chanter, which is where you play the tunes, and the blow stick. These are the ones that were called, as you know, the war pipes, or the Great Highland pipes. As you mentioned, every culture that I know of has pipes of some kind.
Yes.
But, the Scots made them right.
That's right.
Okay, so
and they made them famous.
Absolutely. So it's like they played around and fiddled around with this thing to the point where they got them as loud as possible for a small space, and I think fairly sophisticated. I think it's a fairly sophisticated instrument. These, and this is the kind of interesting thing too, this obviously takes a lot more endurance and push to play than these do. These are a little more delicate and light, but these are so robust that there's a lot of really fancy stuff you can play on these. You can play very, very fast on this, and this instrument is up to it. These are not. Okay. And if you look at small pipe music, it's similar, but they don't have quite the amount of embellishments. You don't have, heavy-duty tremolos and grips and all that kind of stuff, because this can't keep up.
Yes.
It absolutely will not keep up. So it's very simple tunes, but very pretty.
Yes.
So anyway, but this is loud and proud, and this is
what you
small
see
and delicate.
in the bands marching
Right.
around all the
Absolutely,
time,
yep.
and this is the most famous bagpipe in the world, and it was called the war pipe as well, and that's because it was deemed to be, in a court of law, an offensive weapon
Right.
of war, wasn't it?
It was a weapon
Because
of war, declared a weapon of war, yes.
And that came about because there was a piper on trial by the English as to whether or not he should be hung as a combatant. And the judge said, he ruled that those bagpipes that you're playing is a weapon of war, and you are going to be hung because you were a combatant. And so a very offensive weapon. And because, first of all, it scares people when they hear them coming. And it alerts them, and it's just makes your hair stand up on your neck and say, wow, I don't really want to mess with that.
That's right. Interesting enough, that gentleman's last name was Reed.
Honestly,
Yeah, the guy that was on trial, his last name was Reed.
How many reeds in the bagpipe?
There are 4. I had to think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's actually 4. You have a reed in each one of the drones. These play different octaves from this one. It's all like an A instrument, basically.
And that's a chanter.
This is the chanter. This is the one that's got the holes in it.
And there is a reed in that as well.
There's a reed in that. This one, they're all different reeds. Okay, this is even better. See, so this is a double lip like a oboe reed.
Yeah.
These are tongue reeds, which hang down into the bag, so they literally can fall out into the bag while you're playing. Okay, so just to make things a little more sketchy. And I've actually had these go out of tune while I was playing them. I mean, they'll lock in for a certain amount of time, but if you push it, it starts going out of tune. And again, if there's moisture in the air like today, or it's really, really hot, or it's very, very dry, then you have other things that start happening. Things start going sharp, things start going flat, and generally at opposite directions, so they're not like consistent. So, all right. It'll keep you honest.
It is, but everybody loves and respects the great Highland bagpipe.
Unless you're on the receiving end of them, and they're not so good.
So tell us a little bit more about this, and let us hear it, okay?
Okay. These, because it's indoors, I will spare you that because that's going to be incredibly loud. But I'll see if the little ones will work.
There's several kinds of bagpipes that are for indoors that's played in the British Isles. Right. Now, is this a British Isles bagpipe?
This one actually, where we've seen, this was kind of everywhere, but we've seen these in the lowlands. But there are lowland pipes, which are bellows driven.
Yes.
Okay, and those are Scottish too. This one, I think, probably this was kind of off the rack. Pick some up and play them. I think that's kind of what these parlor pipes are. Shuttle pipes is what these are called because these look kind of like shuttles. These are actually little baby drones of these. So that's kind of their job, is to keep a harmonic going.
Okay, so these have different sounds here.
Right.
There's 3 of them?
Right, and you can adjust them.
To
some degree.
Oh, interesting.
So anyway,
this is a very old design.
It is, yeah, very, very old, yeah. And like I said, this is a dead ringer for what they were playing,
Okay, it's got one chanter, and then this is the reeds here. There's
a reed in here, like there is in the big pipes, and then you got 3 reeds in here.
And this is called a shuttle.
This is the shuttle, yeah.
Okay, and the music comes out here and here? Okay, let's hear it.
Okay, well, we'll see how well in tune they are.
I'll try
and play you a little.
You need good lungs for the bagpiping. Awesome.
Little Hector the Hero.
I love that tune. What's the name of that tune?
Hector the Hero.
Hector the Hero. Oh man, yeah. They should. Pipers need to play that one more. That's a beautiful tune.
It's a pretty little tune. Yeah,
it really is. And tell me if I'm wrong about this, but I think the bagpipes are the only instrument in the world that has continuous sound, and that's because of the drones.
Right. Once you fire them up, you can't take it back. It's like
that's right.
Yeah,
they're
like,
just on.
They're on, and there's no off switch, there's no volume lever, nothing. And I'll tell you something else about these. It's the only instrument in the world with a dress code.
What's the dress code? The Bronson is killed.
You can't go play in a tie-dye T-shirt
that is so
and
true.
Cutoffs.
And you definitely like the part, sir, with the vest, on the shirt, and the kilt here. And the kilt is your own family tartan, correct?
This is it. This is the Miller tartan. Yep.
That's the Miller tartan.
Which means either my people were either very, impoverished, or they were lazy, or both. Because you have black sheep and you have white sheep, and you're done. Okay, so
no dyeing involved.
No dyeing.
That is
frivolous waste of money.
Yeah, that's right, man. That's true Scottish spirit right there.
Yep.
Forget that dyeing process. Well, that's really good. I'd love to see you in your kilt playing your pipes in your natural setting.
There you go.
I love it, and we'll be putting up your phone number whether you want it or not, so people can contact you and get you to play.
Or not. Got a piper in the neighborhood.
What did I miss? Is there anything else you want to mention?
No, that's more than I'm sure your listeners are going to want it. No.
Okay. Well, you know what? I sure appreciate you coming on the show with me, and as I'm guest hosting for Glenn Martin on Prescott Talks. And thanks for watching. And come on back and watch another segment whenever you can. And God bless.
Bye-bye.